Cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice bread, not one cry, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, daytime or night. Though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it, we have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no dream.
Nation for January 20th, 2023. Welcome to my viewers. You know, this is my first show for the year, so let me say to you as well, a happy new year to you. And I hope the holiday season would have treated you well, better than most, as we are about to discuss today. Of course, you know, as we start, I like to remind you to call up a neighbor, call up a friend, tell them Facing the Nation is on. You can follow us on our social media platforms as well. It's the People's National Congress Reform page on Facebook, APNUAFC page on Facebook, and a little later on, you'll be able to see us on the People's National Congress Reform YouTube page as well. So do that. And let's talk. Today with me, I have a guest who is no stranger to this program and TV land, of course, Channel 6, Channel 9, and our Facebook platforms. Today, we want to have a bit of discussion. We know some things would have passed, but we didn't get to talk about it here. So we're going to do that. My guest today is none other than Miss Annette Ferguson, Member of Parliament. Welcome to Facing the Nation.
Thank you very much, Shanika, for having me on your program, Facing the Nation, and to our lovely viewers there in TV land, social media platform, wherever they are. May I join you in extending the tree?
Correct. I remember having you on the show a little earlier last year, but I don't think that I would have ventured into some of the, you know, lighter things with you. I don't recall, or did I?
No,
I didn't.
no.
So as I usually do with my guests, I like to give my viewers, before we get talking about the serious things, a little opportunity to learn something about, you know, their representatives.
Okay.
So I usually like to start out by asking, you know, exactly which part of Guyana you're from.
Okay, thank you very much, Shanika. I'm actually from a small community called the where I grew up.
Okay. So border community area. And what was it like growing up in that area?
To be honest with you, it was a quiet area, more residential, because the landscape now has transformed to some extent. But it's a very knitted community. I grew up practically in a single parent home because my father died many years ago. So I actually grew with mother and grandmother with my four other siblings. But within the border community, as I said before, you know, we live like a family. Everybody look out for each other, the respect to them as auntie or uncle, because whenever mom or granny away from the home, you know, they would normally look over and ensure that, you know, we are kept in line. So the community is relatively, as I said before, a quiet community, but times have changed and so has the community has changed.
I understand that. I'll say representation of people into politics. How did you venture? How
Shanika,
did that start?
to be honest with you, like the average Guyanese, I had my own hiccups about politicians
Mhm,
because I see politicians as, people who don't keep to their words,
mhm,
in order to win the hearts of people, they tell them all sorts of things.
mhm,
Um, but I've always been a member of the People's National Congress Reform. I started in the Boerder group as the youngest member in that group many years
mhm,
ago with my mom.
mhm,
But actively, it started in 2010
mhm,
when Mr. Granger was actually preparing to run as the presidential candidate for the
mhm.
2011
Election.
elections.
Mhm,
And, my training at the University of Guyana, my last program I did was that of social work.
mhm,
And that really touched me
mhm,
because, social work is about helping and being the voice for people
mhm,
and working with families, whether single parent or the nuclear family or extended family. I recognize that many of our people were suffering. I worked with young people. I worked in, deplorable communities,
mhm.
and seeing the conditions and the standard of living really touched my heart. And being a Christian, sometimes you got a soft spot in
Mhm,
in you. And I said, you know what? I can be that change
mhm.
because social work teaches
Just
you
you.
that to be
Mhm.
a change
Change
agent,
agent.
right?
Mhm,
So I said, I can be that change. And it started in 2011 for the general and
General
regional
election.
elections. And after the elections of November 28, 2011,
Mhm.
my name was extracted from the list. I became a member
Member
of
of
parliament,
Parliament.
one of the youngest member of parliament, with my other colleagues, Christopher, the likes of Miss Selmon, James Bond, Vanessa
Mhm,
Kisoon. We were a group of young people in the National Assembly in 2011.
mhm,
And then after that, we went to elections in 2015,
and
and I became the youngest minister then in the
mm,
David Granger-led administration.
administration.
So it all started, as I said, a very
Very long.
long time ago, but
Mhm.
in 2010, I gained the passion to go
To go
forth,
for.
right?
Mhm. That's a beautiful story to hear. The viewers now have an idea
Yeah.
of how you got there.
Mhm, mhm.
I want us to have a conversation on an issue that has it happened early in the month, and it's been hot. Everybody's been talking about it, and it's one that it's very
Yeah.
saddening. Just watching at the whole scenario and how it played out, and that issue is none other than the Mocha issue, where those
Mhm.
homes were demolished. And, I want to give the viewers an opportunity just to have like a glimpse again
Yeah.
of what occurred at the time. And then I want us to talk about what are your thoughts in regards to what happened
Okay.
that day. So let the viewers see. So you see the demolishing of I one of the properties here, and this is everything. I'm sorry that my operator does not have the video where they demolished the shop and the way they broke the drinks and everything up
Yeah.
that were there. But this is just a glimpse to the viewers of what we are about to talk about. For those who probably missed, this whole scenario. What are your thoughts on this?
Shanika, that situation in Mocha really, really touched me deeply
Mhm,
because at the end of the day, it's people.
mhm,
It not animals living in these homes. They're people, whether single parent, extended, the nuclear family. There were people living there is very unconscionable. Because any right-thinking government who really got the hearts or the love for a fellow human being would not sit idly by in the comfort, whether in their homes or in offices, to watch what really transpired there in Mocha. I believe that this situation could have been dealt with differently. These people, they have been living on the land for close to 3 decades. The People's Progressive Party Civic was in government for 23 years. Shanika, why didn't they, just before the 2015 elections, why didn't they moved in the way they did 2 weeks ago to do such a thing? But the excuse now is that they got to move, they're squatting. And I want to set this thing straight. It's not, these people are not squatters. They're Guyanese. They're not squatters. And, the time has come for us to move away from calling and trying to stigmatize people with this term, squatters. They're not squatters. They're Guyanese. And they have a right to land in this country. Right? As I said before, what should have been done is that the government should have engaged the Constitution. The law of this land, Article 13 of the Constitution, speaks to the issue of inclusivity or consultation. Right? Let us say the government, the Ministry of Housing might have engaged the people initially. Nothing was done. Move to the next step. Despite who don't want to meet with the leader of the opposition or the representative in the community there. This is a critical matter.
Yes.
And the two should have come together to say, man, look, because of this project, right? The road is passing, as they say, but we're seeing things differently, that the road is... We could have sit together and come up with a reasonable solution rather than us having to experience what we experienced 2 weeks ago in Mocha.
You know what's funny about it? The government, in always searching for an excuse or whatever it is, they started out by saying that the road would be passing at the very spot. After they realized, well, this part is started, the project has started, and people will no longer buy that. They went to say that the residents, they engaged them saying that they would be affected by the dust, by the different things happening, etc. In just a nice way. Their compensation, and as is noted throughout the story, those persons were not afforded any form of representation in this so-called consultation for compensation, which is again wrong. I remember one of the young ladies talking about asking them, if she could have brought a lawyer into the room. Nothing of the nature. They didn't even want them to sit as a group, all the persons living there, to discuss that. And that in itself tells you, that they were up to no good in regard to this situation. And I mean, having to go and bulldoze the way they did, all right, the road is already being built. You had more time still to negotiate with these people. They're saying that these 7 persons had to be removed immediately, despite they're not affecting your building. So you could have continued negotiation with them. And, it's something we need to continue to set the record straight on this matter and let people understand these things are not acceptable. And one of the things I want to remind Guyanese people, and I heard you say so, I think, on one of your programs, that we, the citizens of the country, need to hold our governments accountable.
Exactly.
No matter who is there.
Exactly. You know, let me share this with you because I have testimonies that I can speak to.
Mhm.
I served as a minister within the Ministry of Public Infrastructure,
Mhm.
and we had major road projects being executed.
Mhm.
You had the West Coast Road expansion here. You had the East Coast Road expansion, the East Coast, yeah, of Demerara Road expansion.
Mhm. Yeah.
And they were, you know, to narrow it down specifically to the Sheriff Mandela Road expansion here.
Mhm.
You
All
know
those
that
people all along the road.
businesses plying, you know,
Correct.
private people plying their trade on the eastern and western carriageway
Mhm.
of Sheriff Street. You know what we did? And these people were in alignment
With the
with
basically
where the
road.
road had to be
Bandit.
expanded. And what we did, we sent the engineers out, myself and Minister Patterson, came to engage.
Mhm.
Because somewhere on Mandela, we had to get like 10 feet more,
Mhm.
right? So we engaged those persons, call them in, you know, they got a D grill or King grill on Mandela there. They
Yeah.
had the daddy's vulcanizing shop where you come from
Yes, right between that.
north.
The
Now you turn right, the
Mhm.
shop is right here. So we shift a bit. And they complied. We didn't move in to
And
bulldoze
bulldoze.
people
Mm.
and, you know, to have
Totally
them
remove them.
displaced
Mhm.
and, you know, upset their livelihoods. We didn't do that.
Mhm.
When I went to housing as minister within, right, communities, sorry, there was leading up to the elections, and it was reported that the People's Progressive Party no, not
Serious.
success in Cummins Lodge.
Okay.
And these lands were issued pre-May 2015 when they were in office. But when we came in, we had to start the developmental
Developmental
works.
works. Mhm.
And you know, when the report came to me, the staff said, Minister, persons start to move on to the land, you know, to erect um, buildings and so forth. I said, I'm going to go down. They said, no, Minister. I said, I am going to go down and engage the people.
Mhm.
I went down with my team and we had a frank discussion. And I said to the people there, look, these lands have been allocated to people. We were in the process of having the development who never got an allocation.
Allocation.
Shanika, I didn't move in with police. I didn't move in with grader or a HIMAC to bulldoze the people. This is how a mature government ought to operate. This is how a government that cares for the people, a government that continues to tout this one Guyana, which I don't ever believe in. You understand me? This is how you ought to operate, not this bullyism and bullyish tactic. It will not get us anywhere. So what played out there in Mocha was quite an unfortunate one. And I can say to Mr. Irfan Ali and his entire team, they have done to those people.
Thank you. All right. The other part of the discussion I want us to get into, we sat Monday listening to almost 6 hours or thereabout presentation of the 2023 budget, where I mean, prior to this budget being read, there was a lot of hope in Guyanese of what was going to happen. You know, you saw on the internet, on Facebook, TikTok, and all these places, people were preempting what would be some of the things coming in the 2023 budget to help, you know, persons to deal with the cost of living is having listened to that, what was like, before delving into the details of the budget, what was your first thought on this budget?
Well, even before the budget was presented, I I was very optimistic because I believe that with a whole lot of resources,
Vast wealth.
you know, before this country, the lives of our people will change. So budget 2023 would have been
The
the
budget.
budget to see, the ordinary people, whether you live in West Rumveld, whether you live in Agricola, Tiger Bay, and more. I said this budget will see more going to the ordinary people. So when budget was presented and the team, improving lives and building prosperity for tomorrow, I have started to, bisect the team, improving lives, building prosperity for tomorrow. And when I read the actual budget and also listened to what the Honorable Ashley Singh had to present, there is no way lives being improved and the ordinary man prospering from this budget, because this budget is wholly and solely hinged on infrastructural development.
The mass of that money.
You understand me? Public servants, have their lives changed? No. Public servants in 2021 got 7%. In 2022, 8%. Nowhere in budget 2023 have I seen what percentage will go to public servants. Nowhere in budget 2023 is likely to benefit from where budget 2023 is concerned. Even sometimes we forget the men. What about our men folk? Nowhere in budget 2023 can I find anything going to the male gender of this country. Nowhere in budget 2023 have I seen how this government intend to address the cost of living. Giving 5 billion, don't tell me about 5 billion to address cost of living when in 2022 we had 5 billion. And to date, we haven't had any accountability as to
relief.
Or relief. You understand me? Understand me? Nowhere in this budget for 2023, I haven't seen how the poor, them people will live, on unregulated lands, how you're going to improve their lives. Nowhere. It's all about gas to shore energy. It's all about building roads and bridges. It's all about, what's the other thing? Building hotels and hospitals. I'm not against these things, but I believe what should happen is that budget 2023 should put more focus, more emphasis on the poor class of people in our country.
So I'm figuring immediately you saw the lack thereof.
Yes.
In this budget. You mentioned they're talking about building hospitals. I mean, building hospitals is one thing, but we have seen the decline again in the health sector from, you got to say 2021 to now, we're seeing the increase in maternity deaths. You know, a lot of other issues coming out of our public hospitals. And I don't know that we see anything there that will definitely deal with how we improve that part of our, you know, our medical ability at those hospitals.
You see, let me tell you this, Shanika. The wealth of our nation is the health of our people.
Mhm.
You understand me? That's one. Secondly, you building these modern hospitals as you claim. But then again, will the ordinary man gain to benefit? We already see what is happening at the public hospitals. People going there, they can't get simple ibuprofen, you can't get aspirin, you can't get this test done, that test done. You go and see the waiting hours. I have had the experience. My sister was she took in several months ago, and the long wait we had at public hospitals painful to watch. So you got, I think for budget 2023, if my memory serves me accurate, you got like 70 something billion being allocated to the health sector. But I guess coming out from the debates, you know, they will come with their propaganda and the fancy terms and all kind of things to say that, well, look, this year they intend to improve the lives of our people when it comes to healthcare. But Shanika, we know it will be the same old thing all over again just before the May 2015 regional and general elections. So I can only trust or hope that the high maternity death rate that we have seen last year and early this year, we wouldn't hear our elderly folks complaining about the inadequate supplies of medication at the hospitals. And you know, I believe this whole thing with medication and pharmaceuticals is a money-making thing, you know. Because if you can't get it to at the public institutions, the doctors or the nurses would write a prescription, and you got to go and pay huge sums of money. And when you're giving 5,000 more on old age pension and 2,000 more on public assistance, you know medication out there.
I know we've all witnessed what happened last year with the whole budget, the suspension, which you're still on, that we didn't get to talk about. But I mean, there's a lot that we saw. We had a lot of things happening there. And because of at least inside the Parliament building come next week in those discussions. But I mean, we're going to use our platforms and ensure all our MPs, those who are what I will say unjustly the Guyanese people hear, you know, what they don't want you to hear inside of the Parliament when you're there. So,
but if I may, if I may, Shanika, if I may, you know, I got news for you and news for our wonderful viewers there.
Breaking news, let's go.
Breaking news. You know, myself and 7 other colleagues, we were on suspension. So some had 4 sit-ins. So the ones with 4 sit-ins, they have returned.
Yes, I've noted that.
So myself and 3 others, we had 6 sit-ins. So I completed my 5th sit-in last Monday, when the budget was read, January 16, 2023.
Very well.
So I have
Wonderful.
I will be back in the house.
Well,
Come
you heard it
myself.
first.
Yes, I will be back in the house. Myself and 3 other colleagues.
Mhm.
We return on January 24th, 2023. So we will have our equal
Mission
contributions
to that,
to make for budget 2023.
well, I honestly didn't count it out. I had no clue. So thank you.
Yes,
You
you're
know,
most
my
welcome.
audience are the first to hear this
Mhm,
here
mhm,
today.
mhm.
So we will definitely be looking forward to that, with the, bringing all the style and the fashion to it.
Oh,
If they thought
yes.
they could have kept you
Oh,
guys
no,
out
you
for
can't
too
keep,
long.
you know the
Yeah,
saying, you
you can't
can't keep a good woman down.
down. But with that said, I mean, not giving out your whole speech or whatever. I know that you're shadowing, I think, housing or infrastructure.
No, man,
Housing.
housing and water. So I will be confronting Colin Crowell and
And
Madam Susan Rodriguez.
okay, and water. I found it interesting, and I must throw it out here. I wanted to talk about this for a while.
Mhm.
So while the budget presentations were ongoing, and Mr. Ashley Singh, who appeared to not be, 100 on that day,
Oh,
was
indeed.
definitely medicating a lot. But what I found funny in the whole scenario was that he was drinking what he then told us was water and honey mixed
Mhm.
with something, and the water kind of looked brown. I
Mhm.
don't know. I wasn't sitting in the literal dome when it happened, but he said, his word was, um, "I'm not drinking GWI water," and I'm thinking, did he just realize what he has admitted
Admitted?
to? Because yes, as Guyanese, we know what the water looks like coming out of the
Exactly.
pipeline. It
Mhm.
indeed
Mhm.
looked like what he was drinking.
Mhm.
And for him to even make mention of it at the time, I was like, wow. I don't think he understood what he told the public when we saw, what he was drinking, and he made mention, because it has been, I mean, you talk about things people miss the collation for.
Oh, yes.
Clean water is
Yeah.
definitely one,
Not only clean
and more
water,
stable
in under the People's Progressive Party Civic pre-May 2015. It was the coalition
Mm.
that ensured you had 24 hours of water coming through.
Correct,
You
correct.
tap, because I could remember, my days at university. You gotta get home just before 9 o'clock, because at the strike of 9, the water went. Or something, you gotta call home, ensure the bucket full up.
Full up so you could get,
Exactly, right?
yeah, yeah.
But when the coalition came in,
Mhm.
we were actually working with the sustainable development goals,
Mhm.
right? And I can't remember which one of the goals speak to the issue of pure
The
water.
water. Mhm.
But I can tell you what the former CEO, Dr. Van West Charles, under the David Granger-led administration was doing. He was following the UN of the UN outline where water was concerned.
Concerned.
That is why you had purified water, clean water.
We can attest to that. We can definitely attest to that.
So for Mr. Ashley Singh to say what he said on Monday, it's quite appalling.
I honestly think, I don't know what happened in the Doom, and he kind of tried to pass it off like a joke, and then he commended his colleagues for the great job they're doing in the sector. But I mean, I was sitting there thinking, wow, like, yeah, we know this.
Shanika, what I further observed, Ashley's posture
Mm,
on Monday
mm,
wasn't the regular Ashley Singh.
mhm.
And even leading up to budget 2023, they would usually give you snippets of
We
what
had
budget
nothing before.
2023
Mhm,
would look like. We had nothing,
mhm.
right? And You know, he was very, very lukewarm. His presentation was very, very lukewarm.
I could
in the
tell you, I
National
was sitting
Assembly.
there listening, and I think his highest point for the entire debate, and I was thinking at this point we're coming around to the hurrah where they're gonna tell us all these lovely things that they're about to do, was really and truly when he was talking about the cash grants for education. Like that was if that is the only thing in your budget that you could have been hyped and talk about, then this country really, 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 really needs some help.
Indeed, you know, we have a set of people who, you know, a set of people who are actually not competent enough to run and manage the affairs of this nation. We have had them pre-May 2015, and we saw exactly the mess that they would have made in this country. The failed projects under a man called Mr. Barrett Jagdeo. We must never forget Guyanese. The Skeldon Sugar Factory expansion, of which you and I, Shanika, and those of you who I'm looking directly through the lens of this camera, we are still paying back
Yes.
200 and something million US dollars. Failed projects. We had the fiber
Optic
cable. We must never forget. We had Flip Motilal, the Amylus Fall, the falls to nowhere, dry falls. A man who was friendly, sorry, Shanika,
Go ahead.
who was friendly with Mr. Barrett Jagdeo, who had no expertise, no knowledge, no experience in the construction of hydro. We still grappling a day like today with the Cherry Jagan 2013, if my memory serves me accurate, signed on without any feasibility studies. 138 million US dollars they have committed as a Guyanese to that loan. 138 million, and still this project cannot be completed. So I can go on and on. We had the Marriott Hotel. It was the coalition government that saved the receivership because Republic Bank was that particular hotel was going to go into receivership. It was the coalition government that found the monies to pay off for that Marriott. And now see and favorites. You understand? So we had bad experiences under this People's Progressive Party Civic. Now they're coming with gas to shore. Haven't they read the variant commentaries by educated people who are saying to them, do not go this way? Because if you go this way, this is likely to happen. But it is one man, one single individual that people seem to be afraid of. But I'm not afraid of him. Mr. Barrett Jagdeo. And the time has come for Guyanese to hold this individual accountable. He has served us in a dundrum. That is how Barrett Jagdeo has left this nation. But it seems as though, as Kemraj would normally say, like he can't go in to pasture and graze. So he got Mr. Irfan Ali how he wants him.
You know, you mentioned the Mila Falls project, and it was interesting as well in that budget presentation that the minister used that project to blame the coalition who they claim did not continue this project. And the reason we're seeing frequent blackouts now I think we should make this extremely clear at this point.
Yes. this particular Amila Falls project was riddled high in corruption. High in corruption. I recall sitting in the National Assembly in 2012, 2013, after the 2011 elections. And we asked, it's written in black and white, the records are there to show. We asked the hardcore questions, like we would normally do for any mega project. Bring the agreement to the National Assembly. We need to see the feasibility study. They never. And we said we cannot support such a thing. When we came into government now, and we engaged, I think you engaged international, I'm trying to remember if it is the World Bank or UN, right? They said that, well, look, this was for the LCDS. Well, we recognize that the Amila Falls wasn't a good project for Guyana, right? And how they had already tied us in. We said, no, we cannot continue with this project. So for the Honorable Ashley Singh to stand in the National Assembly and say to all Guyana that it was the coalition who of the constant blackout, it is the coalition's fault. We know that is far from the truth. Because we were getting blackouts, constant blackout from pre-May 2015.
And what happened after 2015, those blackouts?
Well, I was coming there because even pre-May 2015, it was their board member. It was their board members who said that the then CEO, Mr. Baradindial, was incompetent. Was incompetent, and they recommended, the board then had recommended for Mr. Dindial to go his way. Post-August 2020, what have we seen? The returned company. And what are we experiencing?
The same thing.
Miss Hayes, it is the same thing all over again. The coalition, we tried, despite we hadn't oil money, it was monies from the traditional sectors that we were able to procure new gensets for Anna Regina, because the people from Anna Regina to Charity used to complain bitterly about the constant blackouts. We fixed that. The coalition government fixed it. We had the situation in Bartico. Again, blackout. We fixed it by procuring cost of boobies. Again, it was the coalition government that fixed it. So all the other things that had to be repaired was repaired under the coalition government. That is why you had, the time for constant blackout was a thing of the past.
Correct.
We had Christmas. We could have enjoyed Christmas without any interruption. Because you know why? It was the coalition that made it possible. Because we weren't found stealing the monies.
Correct.
As is currently being done now. We weren't found putting the money where it had to be invested so that people could have enjoyed a peaceful and a good life under the coalition.
I'm happy that we had that conversation, because that was something, that stood out to me, that even after all these years, you're still talking about that. You're in government for about 3 years now, and we're still blaming the coalition for things that are occurring now.
Exactly. But you know what? They're promising that with this gas to energy, we will end.
Indeed.
that was going to end it.
Mm-hmm.
And we see where that project ended up a day like today.
We talked a bit about the that we see they merely rehash the what you call it, the salary adjustments for nurses and police. I mean, he mentioned that in our 2023 budget, despite it was done
Yeah.
in 2022. I want us to talk a little because I know you were, like you talked about earlier, a minister in public infrastructure. And now that we have seen this $781.9 billion budget, basically is focused on infrastructure. I am noting that there is talks about building roads and bridges mainly. This big infrastructure talk is just about roads and bridges. And it caused me to wonder because if you're like me and you traverse a lot of the new roadways that we're finding being built from the return of this government to now, there is a pattern that I am noting that when you drive down these newly built roads in a month, washing away to the corner, there are holes. Are we really in then this budget saying that we are also repaying to do roads that we did in the last budget and we're going to be going through this every time because you have these projects done, the work isn't done properly. 2 weeks later, 1 month later, 2 months later, it's damaged, it has to be redone, but we're giving the same contractors the projects again.
You know, Shanika, before I respond to your question, I must put into perspective. The government, through the Ministry of new contractors, you know. My dear sister, you know who get any jobs? I just from the quarantine early this week. And folks telling me, Barber getting job, contract, building roads. Can you imagine that? You understand me? What else you have? Probably a supporter, some family, some favorite of the People's Progressive Party Civic. They too are building roads.
We saw an entertainer too.
Entertainers, you know, promoters, they're building roads. Are we really serious? So that's how the monies are being stolen. That's how the monies are being siphoned off. Because how can you give a man who has no amount of experience, no knowledge of building roads, you give him a $10 million contract to build road? You're going to get substandard work. And that is what we're seeing across this country. So I do believe that budget 2023, you may find roads that were done in 2022 repeated in this budget. And the other thing we have to be mindful of, and all Guyanese should pay keen interest in, if a road sometime, because that's the only way you would know what's happening. If you see a contract in your community, you must be able to ask questions. What's the length of this road? What's the width? How many inches thick? You understand me? If the workmen on the ground can't give you the information, it is your interest to visit whether the NDC in your community, the region in your community, or the ministry that is executing the job to get a copy of the bill of quantities or the scope of work. Because you're going to get a contractor would get a contract for a 2-inch road. But in reality, they're giving you 1.5 inch. So the other cost for the other inch or the other half inch cost going into
Corruption.
somebody's pocket. So we have to ask the hardcore questions come in another week's time when the ministers will have to defend their estimates. And I trust.
We have some roads being
Yes.
showed. Yeah, that's what we say. Brand new
Yes,
road.
brand new road. So this is how the monies are being wasted. This money here, so now you gotta come back. I don't know if there's retention cost on this project, but the contractor, if there's no retention cost, right? The government will now have to find a hefty percentage to bring or to carry the minimum wage to 150,000 as we have been
Asking
counting
them for
as an opposition. You understand me? So this, we, from our experiences in the National Assembly over the last 3 budgets that were presented, when you ask the questions, you're not getting the answers. The arrogance of the ministers would say to you, oh, check the budget. The profile or the budget estimates don't give you detailed information. We have to get the detailed information in the National Assembly. When you ask for copies so that we can monitor what is happening, you have regional MPs who got responsibilities for region. They got to go back to the constituents and say, this is what our region will be getting. So if you're not giving us the information, we're back, you know, it's not helping us because we cannot go to our constituents and say to them, this is what is happening. All we can do is just to provide them with an overall cost. You understand? So I trust come week after next, the government change their way when it comes to answering questions in the National Assembly. But you see, Shanika, I hope I'm not, you know, trying to think here, but sometimes you got, when you're getting opportunity to speak to your people, you got to let them know exactly what is happening. The Speaker of the National Assembly is an unfair man.
We see that.
He's a biased speaker. He's not impartial. You understand me? So when we stand to ask the questions, why is it that you're trying to shut us down? You come next week after next. See what is going to happen. If we ask for a performance because you had 552.9 billion last year, then they came subsequently with 4 supplementary. In total, a budget of 2022 over 600 and something billion Ghana dollars. You understand? So if you're to ask questions, okay, but you come for this money, you say a billion, like AJ, I could remember at the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, 1 point something billion in the 2022 budget. He said he was going to build, we call it a complex, where all the ministries, the government ministries, will end up in one building. So I remember David Patterson asking, was the square footage and all kind of thing, was the tiers of the building and all kind of thing, right? Well, I still looking for see where this complex building, but money's we must be provided with the information. And I hope that Mr. Manzoor Nadir will change his method whenever he has control over the National Assembly.
All right. I mean, the time usually seems long, but then when you sit down and you start talking, it runs out. So we're almost out of time here, but I'm glad that we got to deal with the issues we did here. I will give you the opportunity to, out, even if it's outside of the budget, outside of the Mocha incident we talked about, is there anything else you want to, mention or talk to the audience about?
You know, Shanika, the state of my country, I don't, to be honest with you, like I can't find an appropriate description. But my beloved country, our beloved country, Guyana, is in a terrible, terrible state. Just yesterday, I was in a particular community, and a young man came up to me, said, "Man, Miss Ferguson, we are doing, look how these banners Stephen." I just
Yeah.
repeated the young people, say, "Look how these banners Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
You giving people 2,000, what 2,000 can do." So the ordinary man out there,
Mm-hmm.
they understand what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
You would recall Mr. Irfan Ali went to Yarokabro,
Mm-hmm.
and a woman asked, with all this oil money passing through, why only $25,000? And before Mr. Irfan Ali allowed the woman to complete her statement, the arrogance, you got to go back to what happened in 2015 to 2020. The woman didn't ask you about that.
She asked about the oil money, which is now.
The woman asked about the oil money. Answer the question.
Mm-hmm.
Tell the woman how the oil money could really transform lives of Guyanese in this country. So Shanika, Guyana is in a serious, serious state. And I think people are on the edge. People are, I can tell you, you hear the cries of our people out there. I mean, I'm not a racist. I wouldn't sound racial because, I got a little mixed up in me, right? But it is one set of people that are feeling the brunt by this uncaring, this vicious, this wicked People's Progressive Party Civic. And who are they? It's the Afro-Guyanese. Don't let me try to polish it and fancy thing here. It's the reality. And we have to confront the reality. So I want to say in closing to my brothers and sisters out there, don't lose hope. I believe that the hands of Almighty God is on this country. But He will strike at the appropriate time. And I would want to say to Guyanese, you have to be bold. You have to be fearless when we have to confront a vicious and wicked administration called the People's Progressive Party Civic. Look, this oil money belongs to all of us. The gold money belongs to all of us. The lands belongs to all of us because we are Guyanese. When you go to Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, you don't hear about Indo and Afro. In Trinidad and Tobago, because we got the same, ethnic makeup, you would hear about Trinidadians. But here in Guyana, there's a clear distinction as though you got two Guyanas. Yeah. I don't know we have two Guyana. I know but one people, which is the 6 races, the six ethnic makeup. One people, one nation, which is Guyana. And we all have one destiny. And what is our destiny? To see a progressive, a united, and a developed Guyana. But it is not happening. And I'm going to say to all Guyanese, the time has come for us to stand up against this enemy. The enemy is the People's Progressive Party Civic. And they must be confronted. But you know what? I know people are afraid. You know why people are fearful? Because the government got a police force I'm surprised that the ABCED countries, they're very silent, especially on this Mocha thing. I haven't seen a statement from them condemning human rights violation. And it's quite disturbing in this country. So, Guyanese, the time has come for us to stand against this vicious and vindictive People's Progressive Party. The APNU, AFC, we will return. We shall return to government and continue where we left off in August of 2020. May God richly bless us all. May God bless your family, and may God bless this beautiful country called Guyana. Shanika, thank you very much for having me.
Yes, I want to thank you once again, for coming on the program, just giving our viewers an understanding of what is happening and breaking it down for us. Thank you once again for coming on Facing the Nation.
Thank you very much.
All right. Viewers, our program time is basically up, and I just want to thank you once again for, coming out and calling up your friends and just viewing the program. And, after the program is finished, you can continue to share this program on your platforms as well. And be reminded that I'll be here again next week, same time, same places. Do have a wonderful afternoon.
'Cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice bread, not one crush, not a bit of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo. Take time on night, though we may criticize it. This is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no dream.